Have you heard of the term RAM? RAM stands for Random Access Memory and is a temporary storage component of a computer. RAM holds all the data you're currently using, from the website you're looking at to the movement of the mouse from one side of the screen to the other. RAM stores the data that helps your computer perform its most important tasks, such as loading apps, browsing websites, and editing documents. RAM lets you open apps and files quickly because your computer can easily find the data in its short-term memory. RAM is designed to work with small bits of data at a time. For example, when you click on a link to go to a new website, a series of capacitors and transistors in the RAM circuit board turn on or off, letting your computer translate the link into the web page you see. If you're working on a document or spreadsheet and want to save your work for later, you'll move it from being stored in your RAM, where it can be found immediately, into the long-term storage of your hard drive. And your computer will need to do more work to pull up data from your hard drive. While working with RAM, you can access data in any order because it's random access and not sequential access. RAM is directly connected to your computer's motherboard, allowing for the fastest speeds possible. The more RAM you have, the more better your performance of the computer. Types of RAM. The random access memory of a computer plays an essential part in allowing the computer to execute processes and programs. Unlike the ROM, the RAM's memory is actually not permanent or volatile in proper terms. Hence, once the computer is shut down, the contents of the RAM will cease to exist. Therefore, the RAM is not used to store permanent information like the OS program and other necessary utilities. Rather, it acts as a temporary space where the CPU can execute its computations and run your programs or games. There are two types of RAMs in existence, namely the dynamic RAM and the static RAM. In fact, the RAM has evolved and gone through many different iterations that have upgraded its power and simplified its structure. For RAMs to work, it needs to be able to read and write information. In other words, we must be able to store information and give that information back to the computer. The reason why we keep getting new iterations of RAM is to speed up each of these two operations. Simple enough, right? Drum memory. The first resemblance of a RAM was called drum memory and it was invented in 1932. A drum memory does not fully function as a modern day RAM and is much more suited to be a hard disk drive. However, in those olden days, there was no reason to separate the main working memory or the secondary memory, which is why we could still consider a drum memory to be the first generation of RAM. So how does this ancient technology work? A drum's memory outside surface is coated using a ferromagnetic material which acts as the storage that saves binary information. There are also read and write heads positioned above the magnetic surface to input or extract information. If you want to write information into the drum memory, an electromagnetic pulse is produced and the orientation of the magnetic particle in the surface is altered to store the binary information. If you want to perform a read, we can simply scan the intricate orientation of the magnetic particle along the surface. This is as simple as it gets when dealing with drum memory. Despite all these difficulties, drum memory was the primary choice of computer memory for more than 2 decades since the 1950s due to its efficient memory retrieval and low cost. Vacuum tube memory. As mentioned previously, drum memory acts much closer to a disk rather than a RAM due to its non-volatile nature. Thus, the first true RAM was actually the Williams tube. It utilizes the exact same technology as the first generation TVs, which is the cathode ray tube. The memory writing works by sending an electron beam, deflecting it off the positively charged coils and striking the phosphor surface to make the grid patterns like this. These patterns represent the binary information that can be read by the computers. Like modern day RAMs, the Williams tube is a non-volatile since these patterns will fade over time and the electron beams can overlap read-write in each pattern spot. However, The Williams tube, major 4, lies in the electron beam deflection process, which is highly sensitive to nearby electric fields. If there is any charge imbalances surrounding the cathode ray tubes, the right operations can be severely compromised. Magnetic core memory. The magnetic core memory was considered the commercial RAM for computers in the 1950s up to the 1970s, essentially displacing the use of drum memory for random access purposes. The hardware is comprised of a magnetic rings which can store information due to a phenomenon called magnetic hysteresis. Simply put, these rings can remember information by altering the direction of the magnetization. We can change the polarization of these magnets by conducting an electric current to many wires that run through the rings. As for the read operation, there is a special sensing to detect the charge state of each core, extract the corresponding binary data. There are two types of RAMs, static RAM and the dynamic RAM. The static RAM is the full form of SRAM. In this RAM, data is stored using the state of a 6-transistor memory cell. The static RAM is mostly used as a cache memory for the processor. Dynamic RAM. The DRAM stands for Dynamic Random Access Memory. It is a type of RAM which allows you to store each bit of data in a separate capacitor within a specific integrated circuit. Dynamic RAM is a standard computer memory of many modern desktop computers. This type of RAM is a volatile memory that needs to be refreshed with voltage regularly, else it loses the information stored on it. So what are the common differences between SRAM and the DRAM? The SRAM has low access time, so it is fast compared to DRAM. The DRAM has high access time, so it is slow compared to the SRAM. The SRAM is costlier than the DRAM, and the DRAM is less costlier than the SRAM. The SRAM requires a constant power, which means this type of memory consumes more power. The DRAM offers less power consumption, so the information is stored in the capacitor. It is a complex internal circuit and it offers less storage capacity. It is a small internal circuit and it has large storage capacity. There are other important types of RAM that are in use today. The first one is the FPM RAM. The fast page mode dynamic random access memory FPM DRAM is a type of RAM that waits before the entire process of locating a bit of data by column and row and then reading the bit before it begins on the next bit. The maximum transfer rate is around 176 MB per second. The SDR RAM. The SDR RAM is a full form of synchronous dynamic access memory. It has access times between 25 to 10 nanoseconds and they are dual inline memory module. They store data using capacitors and using ICs. On one of its sides, they have terminations which can be inserted inside of the individual slots of the motherboard's memory. The RDRAM or the RAM-based dynamic random access memory works in parallel, which allows you to achieve a data of 1.6 MB per second that generates much more heat as they operate at high speeds. The VRAM. This RAM is optimized for video adapters. These chips have two ports so that video data can be written to chips at the same time. The video adapter regularly reads the memory to refresh the monitor's current display. The EDO RAM. The EDO RAM is an abbreviation of Extended Data Output Random Access Memory. It doesn't wait for the completion of the processing of the first bit before continuing to the next one. As soon as the address of the first bit is located, the EDO RAM begins looking for the next bit. The DDR-SD RAM. It is the full form of Double Data Rate Synchronous Dynamic Random Access Memory. It is just like an SDRAM. The only difference between the two is that it has a higher bandwidth which offers greater speed. Its maximum transfer rate is 1064 MB per second. So what are the uses of RAM? RAM is utilized in computers as scratch pads, buffer and main memory. It offers a fast operating speed. It also popular for its compatibility. and it also offers low power dissipation. Thank you.